I stand on the protocols already existing. From Father Justin, the lessons from Blessed Times for today's Nigerian priest. I was really very happy when I saw it. Even though not there, let me be now. Nelu ni kena Father Justin you na ma Father Times. Amaro kwani. All na parish yani kana arom amolum couple. So I never met him. But na masisi na mara zekita. And I'm Mali, I've been defending no ndi ozo. That's a very powerful knowledge also. Because they fully Mali for me. Now, they get out about him. So, I'm only just an do to you. You waiting every Father Tansi and one. And the kind you put careful, I want to wine you mal. When I travel, it was going to do what you and yet Jenny friend. Vatican couldn't do what you pray with the rule ordinance. That may be the correct thing. But maybe just in Nando actually, it will be that instruction, that priest handbook in our own area, in our own environments, it will how we succeed. Anyone who wani esikwezia na emal no folk wafa apolofa ka pokwalani. Umoro nyeni imanya na asika oboro Father Tansi. Nobody can be Father Tansi. He's an individual. Chineke kere onwe. Onwere ndụ nke enwe mission nke. Just as mụ na gị nwekwa ndụ nke anyị, nwekwa mission nke anyị. Mana anyị siri nweziri ike isi n'aka ya, etu si wee bi ndụ nke, wee live out his vision. Ma ife anyị ga-ewechalụ na ya ka anyị tinyekwuo na nke anyị ọkachasị ebe egwu na-atụ anyị. Ana ọ bụrụzi onye a na-ezo ezo maka na ụka akpọpụtagoro ya ụwa niile. Mgbe m na-agwa Father Justin na ndị otie na m amarọkwu ya, ana m eche ka anyị negodi anya n'ife ndị maara ya na-ekwuru about him. Ka anyị nwee ike inwe picture this man ebe ọ na-akpagharị maọbụ ebe ọ na-ekwu okwu maọbụ etu ọ dị. Ọ ga-enyere anyị aka. Aga m ewere mmadụ na-anọ. I will take from 4 people. 2 Nigerians and 2 non-Nigerians. The first person, of course, you can imagine is Cardinal Arinze, Francis Arinze. Because there's nobody who knows Father Tansi living now than Cardinal Francis Arinze. Or Father Tansi Zuniterie, Nyatinye Mrijuku. Arinze, like me, was a pagan. Oh, Father Tansi Potaliano Luka. Wetinye Mrijuku. We be in a school here. He lived in his school. And he brought him to the seminary. And from the seminary, he was visiting him during the holidays, wherever he was. And he was the only priest, Nigerian priest, I think, that was there at his burial in Mount St. Bernard in 1964. Cardinal Arinze recently said, I quote, Father Tansi was a great man, a many-sided spaceman of redeemed humanity, a pride of Nigeria and of the Catholic priesthood in Nigeria, a convert from African traditional religion, who lived entirely for God, a follower of Christ, who put his hand on a plow and did not look back. Care is needed in the presentation of the life of this exemplary priest, not to exaggerate to the right or to the left, to distinguish between one's wishes and the historic reality, not to project one's ideal of a saint on a particular blessed, on this particular blessed, and to seek to proven historical facts and reliable witnesses. You can see this quotation in his Memories of Father Tansi called Total Response, page 9. Blessed Tansi founded nothing and wrote practically nothing. But the church confirmed his reputation for holiness with his beatification in Nigeria on March 22nd, 1998. His ability to bring peace is needed today very urgently. Despite the difficulties of being a prophet in his own land, there are people out there who speak of him as if he were still alive, and who still carry his photographs in their wallets. The next Nigerian I will pick up is Bishop Anthony Mwedo, CSSP, former Bishop of Ohai. During the Mass for the reinterment of the remains of the Blessed Tansi after his return from England on October 17, 1986, the Bishop in his homily said, quote, "It may be high claim to make, but it is hard to think of any other indigenous priest who has left a deeper imprint upon the Nigerian church in the last 50 years than Father Cyprian Michael Tansi. He was cast in a heroic mold, and his life was shot with suffering. He had a very high degree of energy, enthusiasm, and candor, and a sensitiveness of which is their concomitant. He had a generosity of temperament, which was entirely self-forgetful. It was given in a sermon at the Holy Trinity Basilica of the Most Holy Trinity, Onitsha, 1986. This sermon was short, but direct to the point. His tenacity is what makes him authentic, honestly, and we need more Tansi in the local church today. Let me take again from a fellow monk from Mount St. Bernard Abbey, England, where he lived the last 13 years of his earthly life. This time, the abbot, Father Markula, who gave the farewell homily at the monastery on the 18th of September 1986, I quote, "When Father Cyprian died in 1964, I think most of the community thought very much the same as that Carmelite sister at Lisieux. What could be said about him? He had lived simply, and edifyingly. But was there any more to say? Was he so different from the rest of us? In saying this, I am not attempting to canonize the community. Not do I wish to anticipate the judgment of the church on Father Cyprian. But there are parallels between his life and that of Teresa. There are things to compare and things to contrast. Her spirit was contemplative and missionary. Missionary because contemplative. She knew that the personal union with God, prayer and sacrifice, however hidden, were fruits of the whole church, unquote. And the last person I take is the Holy Father himself, St. John Paul II. I quote, "Blessed Cyprian Michael Tans is a prime example of the fruits of holiness, which has grown and matured in the church in Nigeria since the gospel was first preached in this land. He received the gifts of faith from the efforts of the missionaries, and taking the Christian way of life as his own, made it his own, made it truly African and Nigerian. So, to the Nigerians of today, young and old alike, are called to reap the spiritual fruits which have been planted among them and are now ready for the harvest. Father Cyprian's witness to the gospel and to the Christian charity is a spiritual gift which this local church now offers to the universal church. Homily during the Beatification Mass, March 22nd, 1998. Now with a little picture of this man before us, if we look at what these four people said, we can take more, but we limit ourselves to these four. We can now think of what he has in his life that made him great. We cannot be him, as I said earlier. He has his own life and his mission. We have our own life and our own mission. What I think first of him in his life is his life of integrity, which he shows even at the tender age of 9, before his baptism. It was recorded that when the future blessed was but a small boy growing in Igbo village of Agleri, he was exposed to the local traditions and customs of Agleri, while at the same time to the Catholic religion, which was just coming in at the time. When he was preparing for baptism, he was told he must part from everything of pagan religion before baptism. Even at that age of 9, while he was still a young man, he made a decisive, radical, and preferential break with what he then perceived as non-Christian aspect of the Igbo culture and tradition. The personal juju, which was prepared for him by his parents, he went and personally destroyed it in front of his mother, an abomination in the local custom of Avaglen, but he didn't mind. Since then, he never went back anymore. That integrity can be seen in all that he did in his life. As I said, I borrowed that word integrity actually from the management science. For anybody who will succeed in leading the people, he must have integrity. And that integrity will guide him in everything he did. And Blessed Times so well put that his integrity, unyobo, nifobo, no. Of course, he put the spiritual aspect of integrity in his life. But it is important for us, for me and for you, fathers. Anyị ga-abụ onye anyị bụ. Ndị be anyị na-asị n'Igbo, kama anyị ga-eriju afọ dachi ụzọ ka ebulu ọnụ. A public figure like a priest must have that integrity first in his life, and that will guide every other action he will perform, both spiritual and non-spiritual, because he's not divided. So for me, the first one I will take in his life, I put it in a secular language, integrity. Although integrity, Paul the apostle also spoke much of integrity, but it does not come often in the spiritual context. But for me, that was the greatest impression I have about him, even up there now. He stood as a figure, and that figure let him do whatever other thing that came in his life. Another aspect of his life which comes so boldly through his life is sensus ecclesiae, the mind of the church. You cannot separate this, the mind of the church and the integrity of his life. They all come together. He has a great love for the church. That for me also is a second aspect of his life, which I think I as a priest should have, and every priest should have. Whatever ministry you are doing, whether church ministry or public ministry, whatever it is, integrity and the mind of the church must be there. The mind of the church is a reason for his religious zeal. He is a very zealous priest. We can see that also in all the places he worked. He was an assistant priest to Father John and Yogu, later bishop. But he was covering every place around that area, both Nnewi North and Nnewi South. The present in Nnewi South and Nnewi North that time. Of course, even more than that, because it's extended as far as to others. And my dear priest, he was going not on a wonderful transport. It was either push bicycle or an old worn out motorcycle which keeps him on the road always. That was the means of transport as he was going. One of the ways in which love of God and neighbor shows itself in life is on apostolic zeal. As zeal is love, which shows itself in action. Zeal for your house will consume me. John 2:14. Elizabeth Isichie quoted Father Mark Log, and I quote, I know him for many years. Him is blessed us, even as a school teacher. Even before we went to the seminary, as a man concerned foremost with others, other persons, other world, he was self-effective to a high degree. That can be found in Elizabeth Isichie Entirely for God, page 23. Can we now think of his availability and sacramental administration to his flock? Of course, that is where his zeal for the church is made manifest. Unending trek, building up new stations and outstations, and whenever he built any, he puts a catechist, and school begins. Most of these places are now big parishes. He was prominent on his availability to his flock. He was there where he was needed to hear confessions, to celebrate masses, to visit the sick, even at night, to attend to the teachers and the boarding houses for boys, and to pray for the people confided to him. I need to mention in particular his attention to sick calls. In the Archdiocese of Onitsha at his time, priests were advised not to go out for sick calls at night, for fear of obvious dangers at night, but not for Father TANSI. He attended all sick calls at any time they came. I can now mention about he is an evangelist. Which began by being a great preacher. His knowledge of Igbo idioms, proverbs, metaphors gave him a greater advantage over the other persons. Even today, people still remember his striking sermons. Agwọtalụ ogidi ọdịda bụrụ agbaje ọnụ jụọ ugbulike ọdụ na-ejefe ka ọ taa ifite ugbo. The snake that bit ogidi ọdịda spat on agbaje, stroke Obunike with its tail, and now is going to bite Ifitupo. Well, they are not the wonderful things, but the way he says them. because he knows the people. And he knows the people because he is with the people. He's not far from the people. He stayed with them and knows their concern, wishes, and desires. And from what he hears from them, he speaks to them in the church. That made him a great evangelist. Above all, he struck everybody as a man of God. Integrity and love of the church. He was genuine, sincere, attached to the gospel without discount, severe on himself, and out for the best for the people. Another striking quality we see in this man is his courage in apostolate. Because he knew what he was doing and was convinced of what he was doing. He had a courage. He wasn't gazing. To know him was to admire his courage in apostolate. He defeated his first problem with the evil forest at Ileka parish. His defeat of his first problem with the evil spirit of the Ileka parish was a demonstration of his courage in apostolate. Another courage was shown in the establishment of his pre-marriage centers, all in Ileka parish. He ignored the challenges of some protective husbands who refused to give up their brides. He challenged unjust practices, oppression of women, especially widows, the masquerade society with their molestation of women. This is another aspect which even today exists among us fathers. Marriage. He had a great love for the family. And of course, to have a great love for the family, you must have a great love for marriage. And he did his best to reconcile marriages everywhere he went. And you must have heard of the way he began it, both at Nnewi, but not well noted at Nnewi, but at Ileka it was prominent. He built pre-marriage centers and forcefully took away wives from their husbands that were living in concubinage against their protests. He was confident of what he was doing. Today, the same problem exists. I'm not advising you to do what he did. No. But the problem is still facing us. You see, looking at our face, how do we solve that problem? How do we solve it? And also, he was particular in denouncing unjust practices among the people. He did not fear the chiefs. He did not fear the men that were exploiting widows. He did not spare the masquerade that was molesting, especially women. He literally fought them. How he fought them I will advise you, we must be careful, not that way, because the time has changed. But the problem must be solved. Today, many priests, especially young parish priests in the rural areas, tell me they are losing their young men either to other religions or to the traditional practice. These are problems. Father Tans will not come back to solve them again for us. It is our pastoral problem, and we must handle it as he handled his own, with a love for the church, sensus ecclesiae. In the Archdiocese of Onitsha, he is known to be a priest promoter of vocations. Thank you. He cared much for vocations. Another profound lesson from Father Tans is his unwavering trust in God and his providence. His life is remarkable and presents many spiritual lessons for us to learn. One of them involves his pronounced trust in God, despite living in a harsh, uncertain, dangerous colonial era and slavery. When it appeared that God abandoned the black man, he vested his trust on them. Then I will just summarize. I'll leave the rest on. If you want it, if you go to Father Justin, he might give you the copy of it using the WhatsApp. He will give it to you. Now, let me conclude by saying, finally, Father Tans reached a high degree of detachment from creatures. Food, house, living condition, money, means of transport, and changes in climate. He teaches us to live that minimum detachment from creatures, without which we cannot be genuine followers of Christ, and not to talk of priests. Fathers, you may know, let me remind you of what you already know. Two things. The Catholic Bishop Conference of Nigeria has made two major pastoral pronouncements on Father Tans. The first one was in 1982 at Lagos, and I quote, "We hereby certify that the National Episcopal Conference of Nigeria, sitting in Lagos on the 22nd of April 1982, after considering the life of Reverend Father Cyprian Michael Iwene Tans, thinks that the promotion of the cause of his beatification will bring results to our country, especially on the area of priestly spirituality. Our conference therefore is in favor of the promotion of this cause, signed by His Grace." Then he graced the President, Archbishop Francis Arinze, and the Secretary, Bishop Julius Adekunle. The second one was made in 2010 at Onitsha, Basilica of the Most Holy Trinity. Celebrating the year of priests, June 19, 2009 to June 18, 2010, proclaimed by the Holy Father Pope Benedict XVI, which was aptly and prayerfully observed in Nigeria. desirous to hold out models of priesthood to encourage sacrifice, prayers, and dedication to priestly life in our land. Having St. John Baptist Mary Vienna as a universal patron of priests, we, the Catholic bishops of Nigeria, having prayerfully considered the matter, unanimously chose and hereby declare also Blessed Michael Iwene Tans, the patron of Nigerian priests. We make this declaration on the 3rd day of June in the year 2010 on the tomb of the Blessed in the Basilica of the Most Holy Trinity, Onitsha, Nigeria. On foot, signed by Most Reverend Felix Alaba Job and Most Reverend Alfred Adelewe Martins. I think this also, the communication of the bishops of conference should make especially any Igbo priest proud. Yes, it's just like when Cardinal Arinze was appointed Cardinal Rome. Some of us traveled to Rome and we were there. So the Holy Father was giving his homily. Incidentally, it was also a Pentecost Sunday. And he began by saying, we see the wonderful miracle that happened on Pentecost Sunday, but today a greater miracle is happening. The gospel is now preached very eloquently in English, in Italian, in French, and in Igbo. When you said it, I didn't know when I jumped up. Yes, and those who were around me was thinking, this man is mad. When I saw how they were looking at me, I just said quietly to them, because he made me proud that my life is not in vain. Father, no, I am proud of my priesthood. If I could proclaim the gospel and the Holy Father recognizes it before the whole world. So in the same way, my dear brothers, let us be proud of this man. Whatever we can get from him, let us make use of him. Thank you very much. Oh, holy disobedience. However, the bishop did not say don't go, but advised to be careful. Now the night is difficult due to bind both dangers from wild animal and dangers from thieves. So, everybody knows the agent Ojebe, upon us in Salus Animarum Primalex. Of even hands of thank you, we won't give you. So, I can't keep bishop because of It's a holy disobedience.